your last assignment for this semester for ARC 1010, you're going to be generating an exterior elevation, which is the outside view of your building. Now, I'm working from the floor plan that I did in a few tutorials ago, generating my floor plan at 3/16 of an inch, and now I'm going to draw an elevation for this, making sure that it fits on my 11 by 17 sheet of paper using the scale 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. I'm going to go very slowly in how I generate an exterior elevation. Keep in mind, this is just a preliminary, and when you get into actual working drawings, it's a little more nuanced than what I'm showing you, but at least this will convey your exterior elevation rather nicely. So the materials that I'll be needing for this assignment is a drawing triangle. I have an adjustable triangle, and I have my roof pitch set to 812. That's what I want to, that's the angle of my roof that I want to design. If you don't have that, you could use your regular drafting triangles, a 45, a 30/60. That would be fine. Of course, I have my architect scale, again, my drafting triangle. I tape my drawings down, a drafting pencil, a dusting brush, and of course an eraser. And I use an array of markers to differentiate my various lines, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I don't always use those, but for this demonstration I might, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So let me get this out of the way, and we'll get started on the elevation. So I want you to pay close attention to what I'm doing and how I am doing it. And again, I want to keep this video under 30 minutes, so I may go through this stuff relatively fast, but you can always rewind it and replay it to make sure you're understanding it. So again, I'm using the scale, my architect scale, of 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. So for every, one of these hash marks that goes in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, those all represent 3/16 of an inch, but that equals a foot. These smaller hash marks represent my inches, and at this scale, I don't generally get too detailed into the inches. I keep it very generic into the increments of a foot. So you'll notice I have my floor plan that I drew, and it's underneath my drafting vellum. And that way I don't have to remeasure everything. I can just project all of my doors, my windows, my corners, and it's just so much easier. So the first thing I want to do is I want to establish my grade line. So I'm going to draw everything with a pencil and with a flare tip marker. So the first thing I'm going to do is establish my grade line, or my ground line. That's my ground. The first thing I do. The second thing I do is I establish my floor line. So I'm going to make my floor about a foot above the ground, and there's my floor line. So the distance from my grade to my first floor is 1 foot. If I measure that at 3/16 of an inch, well, I have about maybe 8 inches, but you can see it's less than a foot. So I start at 0, I measure down, that looks like it's about maybe 8 inches, which is fine. Now I want to measure my fascia height, and my fascia height is like the overhang. Well, not like the overhang, it is the overhang, and it's the front part that protrudes out from the overhang that the gutter hangs on. And I want to make that, again, this is my design, you have the liberty to do what you want. I want to make that 9 feet from my finished floor. So all my measurements will be taken from my finished floor, not my grade line. So I'm going to measure 9 feet And that's going to be the bottom of my fascia. So I'm going to draw a light line there. I should say, let me correct myself. It's the start of the fascia, which is actually the frieze board. And if you remember the wall section, you'll see there's like an 8-inch frieze board and then the horizontal plane for your soffit and then your fascia. So I'm going to measure 9 feet to the underside of my frieze board. And then I want my frieze board to be about 8 inches. So there's a line there. So this is my frieze board, which is a vertical trim board. And then I'm going to put my fascia, and this is the thing that the gutter is attached to. And I'm going to make that about 6 inches. That is my fascia, my frieze board, 9 feet to the underside of the frieze board to the first floor, and about 8 inches from the first floor to the grade. I'm using my 3/16 scale to measure all of that. Now I want to establish my overhang. So my overhang is the distance that the fascia sticks out from the exterior wall, and that's typically about a foot. So I'm going to establish my overhang. But before I do that, let me draw my exterior walls. And this is where putting this drawing, your floor plan underneath, is very beneficial because I don't have to redraw it. I simply take all my exterior walls and I draw them very lightly. So there's 1, there's an exterior wall right here. 2, there's an exterior wall right here. 3, and I'm only taking this up to the underside of my frieze board. And here's an exterior wall here, and then an exterior wall here. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exterior walls, which you can see below of how I established that. From there, I want to have about a 1 foot overhang. So I measure a foot from each one of these because that's how far my overhang is sticking out from my building. Just a foot. You can make it more, you can make it less. 2 feet, 16 inches, 18 inches. And so what I'm going to draw now is my fascia line, not my frieze board line, but my fascia line, which is about 6 to 8 inches. I draw, these are all my overhangs. So far, so good. Now I want to draw my roof. And so I'm going to have a gable on the front and then reverse gable sticking out the side. Generally, I would do a roof plan first so I know what I'm drawing before I do my elevation. We didn't have time to get into that exercise, so we'll just have to, I'll just show you some shortcuts on how to establish an elevation without doing a roof plan. But I want my roof to be at an 8/12 pitch. So what does that mean? An 8/12 pitch is if I measure, starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's an 8/12 pitch, which gives me an angle like that. So if you had a 12/12 pitch, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's going to give you a 45-degree angle. And that's pretty steep, but you can do that. So if you wanted to use your 45 and not do this little exercise, then you can just use your 45 and have a 12/12 pitch. If you want to use your 30/60, well, you can see that's going to be about, let's see here, get another color. At a 30/60, that's going to be about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 pitch. So you can use this as well, or you can use your 45, but that's how you establish your pitch. I'm going to use an 8/12. And what's nice about the adjustable triangle is you have all of your rises. Yeah, I can make it 12, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or flat. So I'm gonna make this an 8/12 roof pitch. There's my angle. It's pretty easy. And now for my main roof, which I want right here in the main portion of my building, I want this big gable. It's like a double gable. So I'm gonna start at my overhang edge, and I'm simply going to draw a line at an 8/12 pitch, and I'm gonna come over on this side, this side, and do the same thing, because I want it to be symmetrical. And then I have this center portion right here where I have my waiting room and waiting room. That's projecting out, so I'm gonna have another gable here. Like that. So these are gable ends, they're flat. And so now I want reverse gables so that the triangle is facing this way on these two little wings. So how do I know how high to make those? Well, what I do is I measure my distance from my exterior wall to my exterior wall, and that's 15 feet. So I know from that wall to that wall is 15 feet. What I want to do is take half of that dimension, which would be 7 feet 6 inches, and I measure that right here. It just happens to line up with that wall by coincidence. And then I project that up, and where it hits that angle, because I measured from that overhang, that's where that roof goes off on a 90-degree on a perpendicular from the main gable roof. So you can see I have my roof already on. Now I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna show my trim board, which is usually about 8 inches. And I have another trim board here. Now I'm gonna draw this freehand, but I'm laying it out with my instruments. And let's see, maybe I may want something like these Queen Anne's, reverse, or do I? I don't, no. I'll just stop these, have these box type overhangs, and I'll tell you why in a second, because I want to do something cool with my windows. So there's my roof. It's already starting to look like a building. Now I'm going to show my doors and windows. So I want the top of my windows to be 8 feet above the floor. So I start at 0 and I go up to 8, and here is my top of window. I'm going to show this with this color green so you can see that's the top of my window. And I want the bottom of my windows, say, to be maybe 2 feet above the ground. So I have to measure just one time. I'll do it here more in the center. 2 feet is the bottom of my window. And so I'm going to draw that line there. So the distance between this green line and this green line, I hope you can see that, is my window. I'm going to have my exterior doors, which I have drawn here. Those will be, would I have that? 9 feet as well. I'm sorry, 8 feet as well. So I'll have 8-foot high doors, which is fine. So now, where do I put my windows? Well, you can see I have a window here, I have a door here, a double door, a window, window, window. So all I really have to do is just draw my windows. There's a centerpiece there like that. There's a window over here. Just draw it in between the bottom and the top of my window. There's a window here. I'm gonna do the same thing. Again, you can design your windows as you want, make them as tall as you want, or go all the way to the floor, or even higher than 2 feet if you want. This is part of my design, and I decide where I want those windows. And then I have 2 doors right here. There's a door here, and a door jamb here, and then the middle of the door right there. So you can see I have my windows, the top of my windows, the bottom of my windows, my overhang, my freeze board, my exterior wall, my floor line, my pitch of my roof, and believe it or not, I'm almost done laying this out. I like to show some more trim, so I'll do that. I'll put that in there, and I'm gonna come back and draw this freehand with my marker in just a bit. So I got my windows. This is looking kind of flat, like there's a big space in here. I could put a window up here, I could put a vent there, I could put some kind of decor. But I think what I want to do is I want to put some glass, because this is a big, well, this is an art studio, right? So I'm gonna take the end of this jamb right here, and I'm gonna put what's called a big trapezoid window right here. And then I'm gonna put a jamb here and a jamb there, I think. That's about right. So from here to here, yeah. It's a little bit off. So I'll make this over here. And so there's a big window on that gable end. And that's about it. Now, I want to put some landscaping in here. So I have a flat wall here with no windows and a flat wall here with no windows. I don't show any windows on my floor plan, but as I'm looking at this, I want to change my design. And I think I want to put some high windows in my bathroom and in my custodial room. So these would be up rather high, you know, for privacy. And it just gives the outside appearance, you know, a better look. And then I want to provide for landscaping. So watch how I draw my landscaping. I just basically scribble. So I'm gonna very lightly just show some landscaping here, maybe a big shrub here, some landscaping down here, and I'll come back and I'll fill this in again later. Landscaping there. And then I like to put people for scale, you know, being around 6 foot or so. Just so the client can see the relationship of people to the building. And then I'm gonna have, of course, my title block here and my scale here. And now I'm ready to draw it with my marker. So I'll come here and I'll start with my main roof. And so again, I'm just going over my pencil line that I already established and just drawing. You can see this is very rudimentary. This is a preliminary drawing. You want it to be a little artistic. And I like to show my shingles here like this. Very loose, very conceptual, a little bit abstract. So that's part of my main roof, and then the secondary roof that sticks out over the waiting area. And again, I'm drawing this, you know, rather quickly. So if I was going to do this for a client, of course, I would have better hand control. And I'm making my lines kind of like curvy on purpose to give it some texture. It's not that I can't draw a straight line or that my hand is shaky. That's a technique that I use. Just to give it a little more organic look. And then I want to put this board in here, which would be a trim board. And don't worry about making mistakes. I'm going to put my reverse gables here, and so there's my fascia and my roof edge here, my fascia, and then my ridge line of my roof. I bring this down. Now for my frieze board, I like to give them a little bit of thickness, so I'm going to come out just a little bit beyond the line of my exterior wall. So you can see that there is a thickness to my frieze board. And then I draw this line all the way across here. Same thing here. That's my frieze board. And I want to draw my gable end here. And then I want to draw my exterior wall. Now I'm stopping at my landscaping because I don't want to run that past that. I'm going to put in my windows. And these big windows here. Here's my 8-foot doors. So these are rather large doors. So I'm drawing all the vertical ends of my windows, and I'm going to come back and show you how I detailed those to make them look a little more realistic than just single line drawings. And then here is my exterior wall. I'm going to draw the top of my window, the bottom of my window with a window sill, top of window, bottom of the window with a window sill, top of window, top of door, top of window, top of window, top of window, bottom of window, bottom of window. I don't follow a typical sequence. I'm not a linear person, so that's why I'm kind of all over the place. That's just how my mind is. And then maybe I want this to be my porch. Okay, so there's my windows. I'm going to come back in here and continue putting in my exterior walls. Got that. So now what I want to do is put in my grade line. I want to put a big heavy line on the bottom here. So, a thick line. That's my grade line. And then I'm going to come in here with my shrubs, and I just use a scribble technique. Something very fast. I draw my trees the same way. So just give it some texture. Again, it's very abstract. And then I like to come in here and just contour to my grade. And then I'm going to come in here and show my window jambs. So to give my windows a little bit of thickness, because I don't like single lines in drawings. It just doesn't look right. Everything has a thickness to it to some degree. So we need to show that in our windows and doors. Now these are all my vertical jambs. And I'm going to show the top parts here. You can see it's really starting to look like a building. And look how easy that was. Very, very simple. I think we have a tendency to complicate things by thinking too much. All right, so now I'm gonna put this big, beautiful trapezoid window here. And that's gonna look into my lobby with that glass wall and fireplace, which would be really cool. And then same thing, I want to give this some level of thickness. My drawing's a little bit off, but that's okay. So again, I make my lines a little bit shaky on purpose because I like to give it some texture. I don't like straight lines. Nature has no use for a straight line, so I try not to incorporate them in my drawings, believe it or not. Here's a straight line. It's just, I don't know, it's good, but you know, it is what it is. So then I come over here and I put my people. Again, very abstract. I show some type of sky in the background. And so now what I want to do is I want to show my brick veneer. So I'm going to put this line right across the top to represent like a soldier course. And then the same thing here and here. And then what I'll do is just come in here. Maybe I want this to be stone. And I just show really lightly. I'm changing the value of my line. I'm not laying that down very heavy. It's very light. I wanted to give it a very organic feel to make it look like stone. And so I want to keep my lines consistently the same distance apart, not too wide, not too narrow. That's one part, and then maybe over here I do the same. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on this pen because I don't want this too dark. Very lightly. And I'll show you how I come back in a minute and give this a little bit of texture so it looks even more like stone or brick. And you don't have to worry about crossing lines. That's what architectural renderings look like. They're very organic. You want to draw these, you know, relatively quickly. So I'm going to try coming this way. I don't know, like, yeah. I'll do it this way. I have better hand control this way. So, single straight lines. It's so quick and easy. And then over here, the same thing. And they don't have to be perfect. This is still a conceptual design. And then what I would do is I would show this to my client to see if this is, you know, meets their design criteria before I actually go into the final drawings and start finalizing all the, you know, the entire design. I do this with every job. I do this for my client before I spend all that work doing working drawings. What I don't want to do is find out after the fact that maybe they don't want that trapezoid window. Maybe they don't want that angle of the roof. Maybe they want something a little different. And it's easier to make changes in this stage than it is in the working drawing stage. And I like actually going over my lines, especially when I'm doing stonework. It just looks very organic. And then I come in here and I just add some stipples. To give it some texture. All right. And now for this up here, do I want that to be stone? Maybe, maybe not. So I'll just show you how I draw a different material, say like siding. It's the same way, but I just make my lines farther apart. And so what I may do is, one trick that you can do is just kind of throw some guidelines in here to make sure that, you know, random straight lines to make sure that when you're drawing this, it doesn't get away from you and then your lines start to follow a certain pattern. So now I'm just going to draw like wider to represent like a different type of siding. Maybe a horizontal lap siding. So I put those guidelines in there to make sure that these freehand lines are straight. I'm not drawing over them necessarily, they're just guides. to make sure that I don't start going on an angle. So do the same thing on this side. Getting a little thick. And right there. So now I want to show texture on my shingles. This is a shingle roof, this is a shingle roof. That's a gable end. So what I like to do, again, everything's freehand for me. Just draw these straight lines. Look how easy that is. And I'm making these even more organic than my stone or my other lines because I just want to give it texture. Plus, it's just really fast and easy to do. All right. So now what I want to do is maybe come in here. Let's see. And wherever I have my walls projecting forward, maybe come in here and give a little shadow line just to make that pop a little more. With this, I normally use markers, but you know, it just makes these pop a little more. Or another thing I can do is come back and really delineate the exterior of my building, so it's nice and clear and crisp, and with no ambiguity. You know, kind of like that. Just really darken that up to create value contrast between my lines. The more you have, the better. And so where I have this line here, maybe I want this to be like a soldier course, where I'm turning my stone or brick 90 degrees from the running bond. And then let's see, I want this to be nice and heavy. So I'll do that over here as well. Again, all freehand. Just be careful on the consistency of how far these are spaced. You know, if you have to go a little slower, go a little slower, by all means. Now, if I had some decent markers, I would render this in color, but I don't, so I'm not going to, and you're not required to do that either. Black and white is fine. And let's say I want to put some lights here. And then do something different with my doors. So they actually look like doors, right? And let's see, so then, like, if you want to get crazy detailed, you can come in here and even give your windows and doors more definition by adding more lines to them. It's something that I do. Plus, if your lines are kind of like too organic, this helps straighten things up a little bit, so the eye's drawn to the straight line and not to the runaway rogue freehand line that maybe got away from you. And if I miss some of these, like, who cares? Really? No one's gonna know. But, you know, I want this to be as professional as I can, and even though this is a very quick exercise, I still want it to look nice. I'll do the same thing here with these windows. The only thing is if you're gonna do it with pencil, when you erase your light lines, make sure you don't erase these lines. You can see I have some lines in here I want to erase. So I'm going to erase those. I'm going to come back in here and erase those lines that I made for my shrubs. Just come back and erase all of my guidelines. And then of course clean that up with a brush. And then we title this